My friend Sharpie, who sponsors the channel with riotstickers.com, we had a riotstickers.com episode where we picked a topic of his choice, and we had this very sort of, again, doing Stan Lee Marvel what if scenario. And the what if scenario that we came up with, that he came up with this, not me, was who would you pick if Jerry decided not to sing for his version of the Misfits? If you could pick one person who was active at the time, you can't pick anybody. It has to be somebody who was active at that time, or what, like in the realm of of active at that time. Who would you pick to sing for your Misfits? Sing for the Misfits. So it'd be Jerry, Doyle, a front person, meaning keeping the classic formation instead of turning it into like a three-piece thing, and whoever for drums. And my number one pick was, in fact, Larry the Wolf. And the reason why I chose Larry the Wolf, I mean, look at all the reasons that make sense to have Larry the Wolf. It just, he is literally the perfect fit. And in a way, it's kind of insane to me that Jerry didn't even like that. There had to be some sort of like consideration or something. It's crazy to me that this never went down, because it would have worked. And I'll tell you something, I think people would have embraced what Jerry was doing, because a lot of people, he got a lot of heat for doing what he did and going off and doing a three-piece and singing instead of doing his backing vocals, which is what Jerry was really good at, doing those backing vocals. It would have been a better received band had Larry been the one fronting it. And as it turns out, Larry had actually sang with the Misfits in the 90s, and I did not know about that. So my final question for Larry is, tell me about this show where you jumped up on stage and sang for them, and like, what was that like, and yada, yada, yada.
Well, actually, I was, first of all, thank you very much. That was very kind of you. We didn't know each other before that, Jeff. Somebody had contacted me and said, hey, did you see this this episode of this fella, Jeff, that had this thing? And I'm going through. I said, okay, I'm going to get like an honorable mention. That's very nice. And then wait, he's the number 3, number 2. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Credit where credit's due.
And I like your vision, because I didn't jump. What happened was I was invited. I had reached out. There was a guy by the name of Mark Kennedy, in
president of the Misfits Fiend Club in the 90s. Yes, I know Mark. Yes. I know Mark. Yeah.
Please give him my best. So what happened was,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
My email that you sent me to has 96 in it, because that's when I first got on email.
I figured that. I really thought that.
I've held it. So what happened? What's funny is, so I get on there, and I think Mark found me somehow. I don't know what it was, but he said, "Hey, do you know there's Manimals websites, fan sites out there?" I had no idea. You know, when you do an independent record, you throw it. It's like putting a message in a bottle. You throw it in the ocean, and someone comes up to you years later and says, "Hey, I liked what you did. It's cool, right?" Or you were terrible, whatever. But so I was just absolutely flabbergasted. At the same time, he gets in touch with me, and I'm pretty sure it was Mark, as I recall, and he said, "Hey, you know, they're coming back. Jerry and Doyle are coming back," and he put us in connection somehow. Jerry and I spoke a few times. I've got an old fax that used to came in like on those heated roll sheets or whatever. It says, "Hey, get in touch with Mark Kennedy," or whatever. It's J.O. from the Pro Edge plant. And Jerry called me, and we were talking about, and I said I would, and I wrote him a note. I said, "This is what I'd like to do." We had played years before together. At that point, I think it was probably 95. And he said, I'm going to do this again. And I said, "I would love to sing for you if that's what you're going to do, but I want to do new material," because he had approached me about, let's take your record and we'll write a few. His words to me were, we'll take your songs on that. I like that Blood is the Horror. I like that record. We'll take them. We'll rework some of the lyrics. We'll put some more werewolf and vampire stuff in there. We'll co-publish it, and you'll be able to send your kids to college on it. That was verbatim. And I said, "Jerry, that's cool, but as I'm very flattered. However, what I'd really rather do if we were going to do this, rather than doing that, I would just rather write new songs." And they had found, he told me, hey, I found this guy. He's a young kid. He's good. But you're my backup. Okay, Jeff, I'm nobody's fucking backup on any fucking thing.
You want to know something? Okay, that's an amazing story. And here's the other thing. You know, this is kind of funny, actually. It's funny you say that, because when I was reviewing Blood is the Harvest in preparation for tonight, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening. I hadn't listened to it in a long time. I'm going, huh? Because usually I'll throw on something from horrorcore, especially if I want to listen to Burn Witch Burn, which is actually in one of my playlists that is in constant rotation. But I'm sitting there listening to Blood is the Harvest, and I'm going, huh? You know, like, the funny thing is, like, picking Larry as my number one pick is that, you know, there is quite a little bit of overlap sonically with some of that Misfits 95 material and Blood is the Harvest. There is, because Doyle's guitar, listen, the Misfits in the 90s, yes, they sprang forth from the punk rock Misfits and whatever you want to, however you want to classify it. Again, trying to not interested in just dwelling on the controversy behind it, but just saying that it is what it is its own incarnation. Yeah. It is not like punk rock. It's metal. It's more metallic. Yeah. There's a metallic quality, which in turn, had they not gone with Graves and they had Larry the Wolf on the get-go, would have fit perfectly. It would have totally worked, dude. It would have worked. It would have been great.
It's very kind of you. And I will, as you well know, Blood is the Harvest was 10 years before.
So that's what
in some way,
what you're saying tracks. What you're saying tracks 100%.
They certainly influenced me. They're a terrific band. Absolutely love when I walk around. And hopefully, maybe in some small way, just maybe, influenced them a tiny bit when they made their comeback. And I will tell you, Jerry was great. He said to me, hey, come on down. We're going to be in Cleveland. Come on down and play the shows. We'll do a few songs. He said, I really like the guy we've got. And I know they wanted somebody who was, I will say, closer in stature to how they had looked before.
Right, like a smaller guy.
Well, yeah. it looked, because I get it. It was great to have, you know, one guy down the middle, like snarling and deep into the crowd, and two big bookends. It was a great visual, and I think they wanted to maintain that. I'm the same size as we're all those guys. I'm just a little hairier, and so but I thought that's a very compelling look as well. And you saw the couple of pictures that are out there of it. Now, there was a videotape. Somehow the videotape disappeared, and I never got to see it. But, you know, it was the right decision, because it was the right decision for them, because I was never willing to go all in. Jeff, I didn't sell as many records or do as many recordings or play as many shows as maybe I would have liked to have, but I got the best kids on the planet. And I've done some other cool shit. My life is not all music. I've done some other cool shit along the way. And my kids and my family is fantastic. And I'm not sure I would have had them if I had devoted the time it would have taken to get into the music. So I'm content with my things. And they made the right choice. They found the right guy for that worked for them at the time. But I'm very flattered that you thought it would be a good fit, because it would have been cool. And in fact, they came back to Cleveland a few months after that show, and something was happening. I think the singer was in jail, or I don't know what happened. He got into some kind of a scuffle, or I don't know what it was.
They could not go to Canada. He got into a fight. I think it was in DC, and he got arrested, and it was like a felony or something. He could not go into Canada.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a felony. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah. I don't know any of that stuff. I don't know the details. I was doing my thing, and and I was relaunching, I was a few years into relaunching my thing at the time. And so I remember I went down to the show and I was talking to him, and Doyle said to me, hey, you singing for us tonight? I said, because they never ready to sing. And I sure. But I think that there was some people, I think, in the camp. Again, Jerry and Doyle were cool with me, always great guys to me. I didn't know them well, but they're always very cool with me, as was Glenn. So I have nothing but good memories of any of those shows. It was a lot of fun to be on stage together with them. We did a few songs. It was dynamite. I would have loved to have done that show in Cleveland where they had, I think they had fans singing. I think there was definitely a sentiment of wanted me to do it, and there was maybe some people in the camp who didn't want me to do it. So that's good. That's fine.
You know, I think, but a wrinkle that you did not touch on, or a detail that you did not touch on, is the fact that they also could mold Graves, or they intended to mold him as they wanted, whereas you are kind of like your own thing already. You are your own established thing. And this idea of like, hey, let's take apart something that you've already done. Like, hey, let's take apart Blood is the Harvest and reincorporate it into new Misfits. It's like, no, that's Manimals. I did that already. I want to write new things. It's like, it doesn't really jive with like, hey, we're trying to start over and we need someone that we can mold into our own sort of thing. So, I mean, it all, water finds its level. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
it was. I was very flattered at the time, Jeff. It was great. It was fun to do with them, but they made the right choice for what their goals and objectives were for them at that time, and it wouldn't have been a good fit for me. But
it's still a great what if. It's still
it would have been. It would have been, yes. And I will tell you, the people who were at that show that saw us together on stage, that front three, I think they'll tell you it was pretty cool.
I bet it was. I hope that video someday. I hope that video or recording. I want to see that. That's
you know what. It might be like London After Midnight. Maybe it's better to be a lost film because the people who saw it say it wasn't as great as it's become over the many years. When you see a movie that's been built up forever, and they say, "I remember the first time my kids saw The Exorcist." I'm warning them. And they're like, "Yeah, it wasn't that scary, Poppy." But it's like the first time I saw Psycho when I was a kid. It was good, but it wasn't, didn't blow my mind the way.
Yeah, but that's just the natural reaction to things like, when you've been desensitized, or like newer generations are desensitized to things that had deeper cultural impact because no one had ever seen that before at that time. So it has, and what that does is it creates a type of trauma. Not like, I don't know, maybe trauma is not the best word, but like it does, like in the way of like, oh my God, that's like really, really scary. And then someone who, whatever, like, that comes later, you have your Jasons and your Freddys and your whatnot, you're watching Psycho and you're going, you call this scary? This doesn't scare me, because it's just not, it's not that it loses its potency. It's just that like things evolve and change. And that's just how it crumbles.
And we know too much. We know too much. It's hard not to see spoilers and hear things. And
that's just so right. You're so true. But I'll tell you, Night of the Living Dead, to this day, that is a movie. Oh, if you don't know nothing about Night of the Living Dead, you see Night of the Living Dead, you are going to be gutted. That's why it's the GOAT to me. I'm like, that is the freaking GOAT.